Well, in verses 12 to 17, Jonathan makes a covenant with David. First, he makes a covenant to warn David. Speaking in the language of a covenant oath, he promises, David, I will tell you of my father's intentions. If my father does, in fact, intend to harm you, he says in verse 13, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also if I do not disclose it to you and send you away, that you may go in safety. May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. Quick pause for a moment. Let's take in how unusual it is for Jonathan to make this covenant. No one normally would do what Jonathan is doing here. See, Jonathan, he's promising to protect his rival to the throne. Jonathan is the crown prince, and he is handing over his place to David. But not only that, look at what Jonathan goes on to say next. Look in verses 14 to 16, he says, and if I'm still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord, that I may not die, and do not cut off your steadfast love from my house forever, when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And so Jonathan, he urges David to spare his life and that of his children when God cleared the way for David's rule. Jonathan recognizes that there's going to come a time when he, not David, will be the fugitive. And back then, whenever there was a change of dynasty in the ancient world, the universal practice called for the complete slaughter of the prior ruler's household. And so Jonathan, he asked David to make an oath. Oh, would you promise to show steadfast love to me and to my children when God establishes you as king? Listen to one theologian's comment on these verses. He says, there has seldom, if ever, been exhibited a finer instance of triumphant faith than when the prince, with all the resources of his kingdom at his beck, made this request of the helpless outlaw. And so just imagine the scene. David is the one coming to Jonathan in distress in refuge and seeking refuge. Jonathan has his kingdom at his beck and call and could have David killed. And yet, in triumphant faith in God's promises, he asks David to spare him and his family when God establishes him as king. Instead of establishing his own kingdom, Jonathan surrenders his throne and pledges allegiance to God's chosen king. Loyalty to God's throne means surrendering your own.